Quick reminders, people are in touch with me about makeup assignments, just try to get those in when you can. I will extend the deadline beyond the 9th, which was my original plan, for the obvious reason that the video won't be posted on the 9th. So more to come on that as I touch base with Whitney and our other staff about when that will be posted, but you will have time if you missed that class and you need to do a makeup for that class. I will certainly factor that in, so not to worry about that. But still, that said, please try to get me makeup assignments and documentation and all that, earlier if you can. It helps me stay on top of everything, so I appreciate that. And without further ado, let me begin by saying that we would like to acknowledge the land on which the University at Buffalo operates, which is the territory of the Seneca Nation, a member of the Haudenosaunee Six Nations Confederacy. This territory is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty of Peace and Friendship, a pledge to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. It is also covered by the 1794 Treaty of Canandaigua between the United States government and the Six Nations Confederacy, which further affirmed Haudenosaunee land rights and sovereignty in the state of New York. Today, this region is still the home to the Haudenosaunee people, and we are grateful for the opportunity to live, work, and share ideas in this territory. So tonight, we're very lucky to have Dan Gardner of Code and Theory with us, and my wonderful colleague in design, Kelly Myers-Chunko, will introduce him. So please join me in welcoming Kelly.
Great, hello, welcome. This year, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of the CFA, and it's no surprise that our ubART alums have gone on to do incredible things during that time. Tonight, we are fortunate to be able to spotlight one of those individuals. It's my honor and privilege to welcome a fellow ubARTS alumnus, Dan Gardner, to our stage tonight. Dan Gardner is co-founder and executive chairman of Technology First Network Code and Theory. He's built Code and Theory into the only network with a balance of 50% creative and 50% engineers, and nearly 2,000 employees across the globe. Code and Theory is a trusted strategic partner to the biggest brands in the world, including Microsoft, Amazon, Google, MSNBC, and JPMorgan Chase. Some of the most innovative and inspiring work of the last 2 decades can be credited to Gardner and the Code and Theory team. From designing CNN's Magic Wall and launching the Daily Beast, to the rebranding of the Washington Commanders. Dan founded Code and Theory 23 years ago. Since then, he has become a trusted voice at the intersection of digital transformation, emerging tech and AI, and has been featured in Forbes, Fast Company, MarketWatch, and more. Insider named him one of the top execs leading the AI charge. His efforts have been recognized in global awards shows, including Cannes Lions, D&AD, the Webbys, and the Effies, and he's lectured on global stages like Davos and Web Summit. He is a co-founder of On Discourse and a member of the Stagwell Marketing Cloud. Please join me in welcoming Dan Gardner.
Okay. So first, I'm going to say that when I first came to this school in, I guess, 1998, I graduated in 2001. My first ever class happened to be in this room. I'm like, not even joking, it's like very, very strange that now I'm talking here. Because that class, I probably sat in the back because I was definitely a back sitter. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? And what the fuck is this person talking about? And I was like, this is not going to be for me. Luckily, I made it 4 years and I graduated and went on to do some good things. But it's crazy because this, even being in the school is weird right now for me, but certainly being in this room is like insane. So, I didn't exactly know what to talk about today. It's like keep it, give me some loose ideas. So I did a couple things. One, I'm going to first talk about Code and Theory, the company I started. I'll try to get through it quickly because I don't know if it'll be exciting or boring. I'll show a couple things that we've worked on in the last couple years, And then I'm going to talk about why the internet sucks. And I'm going to talk about about AI and sort of areas of opportunity to think about. I think I met some of you earlier today, so some of it may be a little repetitive. Here's some of the dialogue. I'll get going, and then we'll do some Q&A. I'm used to walking, but we got the microphone here, so it's going to be, if you see me move around a bit, just know that it's a little weird for me. And already, I was wrong with fonts, always get fucked up. As designers, you know that I'm not happy with the way that looks, but that's entirely my fault. So I started this company called Code and Theory in 2001. I graduated in 2001. So basically, the quick history is I graduated at an interesting time, which I think has a lot of parallels to now. The interesting thing about that time was we were going through a transition where technology was changing the world, changing how we live, changing how businesses do business, and everything in between. When I spent time in the school, it was sort of like this moment where we kind of knew what was happening. We didn't exactly know what it was going to look like. And at this school, I specifically got really into this idea of like creativity and technology. Like this is what like I realized was like, oh, this is where I want to spend my time. This is where I want to be a creative person. I want to be a designer, but specifically at the intersection of like where creativity and technology intersect and to solve problems, find opportunities, use that as the like foundation to doing interesting, cool things, because at the time it was very obvious to me that the world was going to change and people didn't know it. So the company I started was called Code and Theory. Code, technology, and theory, creativity is really at that nexus. And when we started it, it's the same thing today, like this intersection of creativity and technology. And that has never changed, even from like the early days when we started to like what it is now. You know, actually one thing I should say is after I graduated, I feel like this is like relevant for this audience. I moved to New York City and I applied to a lot of jobs, and a lot of companies that actually now are my competitors wouldn't hire me. No one hired me. Like I barely could get an interview, let alone a response or anything. I was lucky enough that I knew someone, and he had a job at a traditional ad agency, and I worked there basically about like 3 weeks after I graduated and started working there. And within a couple months, I was like, holy shit, like this is crazy. Like, is this what work is like? Is this what a job is going to be? Like, it just didn't feel right for me. I'm like, I pride myself as a creative person, and it felt like boring. It was like Midtown, New York, for anybody from like the city. Like, it wasn't right. And through that experience coming from school, where like school was like, hey, you have an idea, you do the idea. And for the most part, you have classes, they like guide you, be like, you have an idea, you do the idea. It wasn't like that, and that company didn't understand or didn't think to understand or take the time to know where technology and creativity was going, how to apply that together. So that's why I quit a job that was almost impossible to get. And I want to say, like, I had nothing, like literally changed my name, and I had a job briefly for a couple months where I was getting paid more money than I've ever seen. It was a lot of money. It was more money than I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, I can't let my life be like this, even though I did everything to get this job and called everybody I knew to get a job. I was like, this is not going to be it, because it's not where I thought things were going. And I felt like there could be new ideas out there. So that's why actually I left and started Code and Theory. It was like that moment from like all the work I was doing at school to this like brief couple months where I'm like, this sucks. I don't want to live like this. This isn't what my life should be like, to starting this company. And that's sort of how I got there. And at Code and Theory, we talk a lot about experience change. Like, this is what happens when you work with us. This is the things we do. It's a call to action. But really, like, very simply, we design, build, market, and transform. That's the important things for our clients' businesses. Like, we work with corporate clients. Our job as designers, as creators, is actually to transform and grow their business. And that's really the focus. And sort of like, here are just some numbers. I usually do this in like a corporate setting, so it's a bit more salesy. I'm trying to not make it salesy. But we work with a quarter of the Fortune 100. So the biggest companies in the world all come to Code and Theory. We work with the entire thing, like suite of companies. So we like to say like we're the company that technology companies call. We're the technology company. Like we pride ourselves to be as close to technology and be curious in technology. Right before we were talking about Apple Vision Pro, Apple's a big client of ours. Like we are as close as you can get, because when we work with these other companies, we need to know where the puck is going. When it's not the biggest companies in the world, we help create either IPOs or billion-dollar valuations for it doesn't have companies. News and publishing is something that has always been, I've been personally passionate about. We've done over 200 newsrooms transformations. So Kelly mentioned we launched the Daily Piece for anybody who knows what that is. We work with BBC and The Guardian, Press Magazines, Vogue Magazine. We work with Academy Network directly, Overman, for people that know who that is. Like we've been inside and out of almost every major media company in the world. That's just something I believe that for government is important. Design can be transformative. That I know we talked about a little earlier that there was once an assignment to like rethink news. I think news continues to need to be rethought. So we spend a lot of time in that. We do a lot in heavy regulated industries, so like finance and healthcare. Designing in those situations we have a totally different set of problems when you have to like worry about like security and health data and everything like that. And AI is new, but it's not so new across our company. As mentioned, we're about 2,000 people. I like to say it's a sweet spot of scale, but I think I've always said we're in the sweet spot of scale even when we're like 4 people. So it's just something we say. But the important thing here is that the Code Theory is actually an umbrella company of other companies as well. But the important thing here, we believe, and I'm yet to be told otherwise, we are the only company at this scale of thousands of people that have been able to find and have the balance of 50% engineers and 50% creativity. So it's something that, like, back in the day when I was like programming little flash art experiments and directors, we used to director a lot back in the day. It was always like that mindset is something that I've really worked hard and intentional. I've been so intentional about always having this balance. So when we solve problems and people come and work together at Code Theory, we're actually solving it in this way. It's not like a designer going in isolation and just designing something. It's not an engineer just taking some design requirements and making it. It's like, how do you actually come up with new ideas and execute it together? That's always been important. This is what we do. It's like pretty simple. We market, we branding, we do big technology stuff. CX is a big important thing we do. At the end of the day, though, it's all about like business transformation. Nowadays, it's all about AI transformation, and I'll get to that in a bit. I'm not going to talk about the awards. I'll mention some of it, but this is kind of an example of our clients. Like we literally, I don't think there's any specific industry we don't work on, from big CPG brands to Nike to Adidas to financial institutions like JP Morgan, Adobe. We started working with more recently, which for me has been a pretty incredible experience to be on the inside of Adobe after spending so many years using their products from like early days. I think when we were here, we were using Photoshop 2.5, and actually it didn't even have unlimited undos, and it didn't even have layers. And I remember when they introduced layers and unlimited undos, which is a novelty as creative people now to just keep on doing a couple things and layers of things. That stuff didn't exist. So imagine designing in a world that didn't have that. So I'm going to just like show a couple things. I think Kelly just mentioned, we did the for the who watched the elections on TV. I don't know, it's a big swath. You can watch CNN, NBC, don't watch that at all. That's amazing. Most of the country watches it. Younger people, I guess, don't watch it as much. Maybe actually someone went to CNN.com, but basically as election results came in, it was like, 11 p.m. It's like who's going to win, and like, oh, lookalike districts. Well, that wall that John King or Steve Kornacki did, both of those we designed, which is an incredible project. If you think about like the immensity of data coming in from exit polls and how we visualize it, but most importantly, how we create storytelling around it. And how we make it accurate, how we build producer tools that's behind it to allow producers to create stories real time for the people in front of the cameras, and then how do we distribute that across all different digital channels like websites and everything. So this is just an example of something we did. Or this was interesting. Pfizer came to us pre-COVID, and some industries are surprisingly behind the curve of technology and design. And Pfizer actually, I don't know if people know what clinical trials are. Hopefully, we live in a world where people in a university know what that is. But that's like the way you figure out drugs and its effectiveness and is it safe. This was all done by fax machines and printed documents. Like, literally, that's how Pfizer did it. Not too long ago, and about a year before COVID, we actually started to digitize and say, hey, what should the process be in a digital-first world where you don't do fax machines? Luckily, we did that, and then luckily, not, or unluckily, then COVID happened. But luckily, we actually spent a year before COVID happened to actually do this, because this was one of the foundations that allowed Pfizer to actually do clinical trials to get the COVID vaccine. So like, this is like the power of design. Like when I say like technology and creativity, it's like, if you think about all the different users, you have like hospitals and labs and doctors and the actual people that are doing the clinical trials. There's so many different parties that have to use these systems. It has to look a very specific way. It has to be as easy as possible, and it can't get in the way of the actual data. It has to actually inform people to make important decisions. So this is where, like, when we think about design, it's not just, yes, typography, but actually what are you trying to solve? Yeti is a big client of ours. We've done everything from their e-commerce site, but I think even more fun and cool is Yeti is a thermos brand, and as you know, and people have them here, it becomes a commodity quite quickly if it's not a lifestyle company. And like, what's the difference between like Stanley and Yeti and anything else, or like the generic thing? You know, as people that probably like shoes or sneakers and wear Nike and Adidas, like you have to build lifestyle around it. So we did this thing where we realized there are a lot of hiking trails that aren't mapped because the car, like Google Maps can't get to it or satellite maps can't get to it. So we actually mapped all the trails for hikers and outdoor lifestyle to sort of build around the Yeti universe. So those are the sort of things. I put this in here because usually people that are into football find this interesting. But it's funny, you gave a land we are on talk before we got here. For those who know football, the old Washington Commanders team was historically racist. I mean, to say it's racist is almost an understatement on how racist it was. So we worked with them. Actually, we did the Washington football team first for anybody that knows that we had a moment where it's called the Washington football team. We spent about 3 weeks to change it to the Washington football team, which is unbelievable to do a brand. We did everything in the stadium design and everything. And we did that quickly just to give us a year to actually do the real project, which actually got us to the Commanders. Now, this is a thankless job. If anybody is fortunate to brand a team or a big brand that everybody tattoos on their arm and shit like that, like, it is a thankless job. No one will like you, no matter what you do. But the interesting thing about this was a data-first branding job, where we had incredible amounts of research and data and insights and different ways that actually informed decision making to get to the point where we both chose Commanders and sort of everything, like from the Washington logo and the W and everything in between. So I can tell you, my wife is pretty sick of me saying I did that every time it comes on TV, but I'm still proud of it. Okay, so that's enough about code and theory and what I do there. I think it's more interesting to maybe hear some of my perspective on where I think the world, I say CX is headed here, but I really think the world is headed. And I have this sort of belief that the internet sucks right now. And I'm gonna just kind of talk about what I mean. So the first thing I kind of like to just like visualize is like, think like, where do you live? Like here is pretty easy. I can just talk sometimes internationally where people come from different places. So, but it's gonna work the same way, like where do you live? Everybody's thinking, oh, I live in Buffalo right now at least, or maybe somewhere else. But the reality, maybe not everybody thought that, is you're wrong, because we all live on the internet. This is what consumes our time, our life, our like way of being, all consumes around the internet. This is actually where we live. You spend more time here with your head down than your head up in every which way, whether you work, how we connect, how we learn. I know you have teachers, but you're also learning from day to day beyond your teachers, hopefully. You're growing up as people, and you're growing up on the internet. Most of you have probably had the internet your entire most of the people in this room. But I'm gonna keep saying it sucks. And it's sort of like, this is the analogy of what I think it looks like, is like, it has a lot of doorways and it's functional. I can get to things, I can have my functional needs met, but it's boring and it's old and it's the way I used it in 2002 and the way you're using today. Now, you could say it's improved along the way, but it really hasn't. Like, I make my appointments in a shitty same way, I pay bills and it's frustrating, it's boring, very functional. It's also painfully boxy. Like everything revolves around a box, from the screens that you're looking at, to like the Zooms you spend your time on, done with you wanna watch some content, you watch like Netflix or some other streaming service, they're all designed exactly the same way. Everything revolves around these boxes, like our entire lives. And, you know, I was promised flying cars by now. But I don't know about what your promise was, but like literally, it's like in the year 2020, it's like we're gonna be flying cars, and like, you know, I have to like find Back to the Future 2. I'm like going across like 15 streaming services, and like, where is it? Is it free here? It's not free. Like, it sucks. It sucks to look for it. It's supposed to free up our time, but as a person in the workforce, I can tell you, it hasn't freed up my time. I work more. People work more because it follows you everywhere. At night, on the weekends, it doesn't free up our time. It's supposed to be faster and easier. Some things have been, but you know, passwords, cookies, like it's not. I'm like stuck in this like shitty wormhole. You know, it's supposed to enrich our lives. In like the 80s, it was like, oh, computers are coming, the internet's coming. It's like we're gonna go to space, and like the imagination was so broad because we know what it was, but it didn't really enrich our lives. Like in the early days, we talked about information superhighway. Okay, we have access to an incredible amount of information, but we actually have information overload. Like, I don't even know what's real, what's not real. I'm in echo chambers or filter bubbles. You know, it's just, I feel overwhelmed. Like, I don't make a decision better because I have every single option in the world that does actually make it easier for me to comprehend or understand something. You like that? You like that dot animation? That was an accident, actually. Let's talk about the social web. Now, you guys all grew up on the social web, but at one point it was called social networking. There was actually a movie, if you all saw it, about like the Facebook founding social network. And we call it social media. Why is that? Because it wasn't, the promise was like, oh my God, I'm gonna connect to old people in university that had been spoken decades ago. But you know what it turned into? Consumption, media consumption with advertising. It doesn't connect us as humans. Like, we sit there like doom scrolling all day long. Like, I don't know, like how many people, I'm curious, how many people spend an hour on TikTok and at the end of the hour they feel enriched? Does anybody feel enriched after that hour? Because you'll do it again, and keep doing it again, but do you feel enriched? Like, I don't. And we know now that actually there's mental health. We didn't know that in the beginning. We know that now. We're only starting to grapple and understand the mental health issues around social media. And the mobile web was supposed to say, like, okay, we invented these things. We're going to be like on the go. It's going to be amazing. But now we're just like, our heads are down. Like, even I see people in the back row, like, heads are down. You know, they may or may not be paying attention to. They're dependent. We're all dependent on our devices. And we have this always on fatigue. I know I feel it. Like, where it's like, I can't not look at my phone, but also I'd rather not look at my phone. I'd rather not be on my computer. Like, it just exists. So, did I mention it sucks? And I could keep going on across industry. It's hard for me to imagine any specific industry where you can tell me the internet is fucking amazing. And it's like, oh, this is the way our lives are going to be. And it's the way it's like been designed. It's like designed on these silos. Like, it's siloed from the business. Like, every business, like big business, has like these corporate. University of Buffalo. Here's the art department. Here's the AI department that just, I guess, is formed. And here's your science, like silos. The internet is actually designed based on those silos at all levels, from a big company and their silos down to, hey, I'm going to design a website now, or I'm going to design an app. It's like, okay, what's the data? It's basically a database, even if we're not looking at it that way. Like here's the information architecture. Here's the least common denominator system to move people around. So okay, now I'm gonna put the navigation like this, and I'm gonna do this, and this. It's like all the same rigid way that we engage with everything. But here's the good news is for you, Paul, coming out of school eventually, it's still evolving, and this chart was made about like we're at like 0.015% of all human history. The internet is not and hasn't always been in our lives. It's actually so immature. I was actually immature at one point where I used to say, hey, I started my company in 2001 and I matured as the internet matured and the internet's mature and the company is mature. And then I realized actually, no, I'm immature. Well, definitely I'm immature. But the internet's very, very, very immature. Like we are just not even close to understanding what social media means, what it means to be like our phones, how we connect with each other. Like it will be different. I did this game earlier in the day. In 20 years, do you think you're going to be like this all day long? Do you think your kids will be back here, one of you is going to be doing this talk right now in 20 years, can stand on the stage, and you think everybody's going to be like, that's what our life is going to be like, 40 years, 20 years. Like, eventually something's going to change, and maybe we won't do it. Because you know what, 20 years ago, we weren't doing that. So let's not think it's so normal that it will always look like that. So our imaginations right now are limited. That's what I think. That we're supposed to be creative people as the Center for the Arts. The possibilities are endless, so the only limitation becomes our creativity in figuring this out, because the tools are now here. You have things like AI and other types of emerging tech. Like I can go down a wormhole of emerging tech, but like AI in itself allows for us to do things in a different way. It's technology that actually does way more than just write your copy for you or design your page for you. I know that's what we're all scared of as designers. It does so much more than that. It is a new way to interact with computers. A new way to interact with computers offers incredible new opportunities. But you wouldn't believe it if you read the headlines. And this is what I think is we are solving and designing the wrong problems. We are literally don't know what to ask right now. And what we get is things like, how do you future-proof? Well, I think that's defensive. Like future-proofing is like, hey, let's just play it safe. But you got to drive it forward. Or efficiency, like AI is like the biggest efficiencies that everybody talks about. We do more with less. It's like a race to a bottom. If that's the answer, or that's the question we're asking, if you are a business or you are a professional, or going to eventually be a professional, if this is where you are, you're fucked. You will be fucked. It's a race to the bottom if that's the question you want to ask. But there are other questions. But interesting enough, like I love this example. I said it a little earlier. But in 2005, Blockbuster, for anybody that remembers DVDs or VHS tapes, they were the leader in the rental market. This is how we got our content. It wasn't as easy as today. And then 2007, Netflix launched their streaming service, and then 3 years later, Blockbuster was fined for bankruptcy. Like, that's how quick things go. Like, someone at Netflix was like, hey, why don't we copy code theory's Comcast TV Everywhere solution? That's a little pat on my own back. But they did it at scale, they marketed it, and within 3 years, they put the leader out of business. Like, that's how quick things can change. We always think that, like, it is what it is until it's not. Like, in 2008, I do a lot of media and publishing, as I said. 2008, the media and publishing world collapsed. Like, digital publishing, like, came, like, really kind of transforming with BuzzFeed and Huffington Post. Like, that stuff didn't Vice Media. That stuff didn't exist. It existed a little, but not at scale. If you ask someone in 2005 and 2006 about newspapers, they'd go, I love a newspaper. It's never going to change. I love the feeling of a magazine. Like, how could that ever leave? You have these magazines, but it's niche. It went away, just like that. So the point I'm trying to say, I hope you're picking up, is that, like, you can shape this. But if you solve yesterday's problem, like, you're going to lose out. It's about tomorrow's opportunity. It's about the thing that we don't know about. That is the imagination. That is what something like ChatGPT or AI can't do. It can't figure out something that doesn't exist anymore. And I really think this is about a fundamental moment of time shift where this technology, specifically AI, we're moving from information technology to emotional technology. How it can connect with a human in a different way. No one's been really solving that. Very few people have thought about like, how do we connect to this technology? It's all about how we deliver information, how do we remove like friction and do all these things to access content of the world and do other things. But like, actually, it has to connect with you as a human. Because in a room, we can connect with each other as a human. But our devices and the internet doesn't really connect with me as a human. But now it's starting to. It's kind of feeling like a human. I can talk to it like a human. I get a head nod there that is like scared shitless about what I'm saying. We'll have some QA in a second. I think it's a place where you want to live because I don't want to live in this like functional BS right now where it actually doesn't, right? Like, book something, think about it, you have a health problem. It is so lack of humanity in the digital communication points for health right now. Like what I booked this thing, like I get these results, and it's like, oh my God, I don't know how to make sense of it. It doesn't know, like maybe I'm an anxious person, maybe I need a lot of information, maybe I don't want to talk about it. It doesn't even know any of that on things that really can affect you. Imagine it could know that in a different way. Telehealth is coming. Imagine telehealth can be emotional in the way it connects with you. Could that be actually better than waiting for a doctor 3 hours or 2 hours or 15 minutes in a waiting room? If it could connect with you in a way, like it actually can be better than even its analog counterpart. And I really think it's about like anticipation. That's how we can develop, like deepen relationships, drive engagement, retention, loyalty. Like that is how businesses, these are the metrics that businesses want. Okay, so then the question is like, what is it? And actually earlier we like, what is it? Like the reality is I don't know what it is. Maybe some of you may start thinking about what this is. But I have a couple of areas that I think you should think about. Really 3 areas of focus. The first one is embrace friction. Efficiency clears the path, friction makes it memorable. So when I was taught to design, especially in the early days when I started the company, we spent so much time on removing friction. I was always like, how do you remove friction? Especially like as a UX designer, like you want to always remove friction. That was always like hammered into me. And every project I ever worked on, it's like, how do we remove friction? You remove friction, drive more loyalty, you maybe get a conversion on a sale if you add too much friction, you break something down. You know, if you add more friction, maybe someone doesn't click on the next link for more ad revenue. Like everything was about like removing friction. And you see it like in the social apps, it's like very little friction. You're just like scrolling or tapping, and it's like, even to scroll to the tap, believe it or not, that was a huge invention. Where it's like, oh, scrolling actually kind of sucks. You have to like move your eye. What happens if you just tap, 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 tap? It's all a frictionless move. It works in many different ways, but it doesn't feel memorable. It doesn't like make you think. It doesn't make decision making. Now, I know that if you make decisions, you actually can be enriched. So obviously, there's a spectrum here to be figured out because too many decisions, you throw like the Netflix example, like, do people go on streaming platforms? I know no one goes like watches NBC or CNN. Do people watch like Netflix or Hulu or any of that stuff? Yeah? Okay. Well, this is, I don't believe that, either people are shy here or they're like, I'm like, things are really changing faster than I can imagine. Okay, for those of you that may have ever opened up Netflix, this is how it goes. You open it up, you're like, oh, what should I watch? Like click, down, right, down, right, forget it, I'll go on my phone. You watch TikTok. Which is maybe why you don't watch it. That's too many decisions. That isn't good. The old cable actually was better. You like put it on, you're already in content, you hit the guide, you have a 10,000-foot view, and it sucked in other ways. But actually, you're kind of like moving in and out of it and making decisions in a way. Like there could be a just right, and but no decisions. It's just passive and it's unfulfilling to the point that TikTok is unfulfilling if you spend an hour on it. So that's just. I think music streaming is a great example of this. Like, you got a phone call. You good? I think about like, everybody's too young here, but like once upon a time, you like go to a record store. And that was like, it was like friction. I could go somewhere and do something and like flip through like physical records. But that kind of like friction was actually good to the music discovery. I actually discovered more music and it was more intentional than that. Now, I'm not saying to go back to analog counterparts. I'm just saying, what happens if you can create that friction in digital experiences that can kind of simulate that in an effective way that feels like it's meaningful, but not getting in the way? Like, that'd be interesting, because I know for me, like when I go on like Spotify or Apple Music, it's like, it's almost, I don't discover music the same way. Yeah, I get some related, or I'll put on like a smart playlist, but it's almost like more passive, which isn't intentional, which means I'm not going as deep in it. Like, it's just a little different experience. Like, could you do that? Could emotional technology actually deliver that? I'm trying to win over the head nod over there. Okay, next one, design for wonder. I know this seems obvious, but oftentimes when designing, especially like these professional settings, it becomes so functional. It's like I say, why is the internet so functional? It's because we actually lose wonder. And you know, this is like important for fulfillment, for enrichment. And I want to feel the world of wonder. I don't feel that. I don't feel that on the internet now. I gave this example a little earlier today in the Q&A about travel. Like, it sucks. Like, I don't know if anybody thinks it's actually good here, but like, I give the analogy of after you have traveled, okay, think about traveling somewhere, okay? You come home and you have these memories of that travel. Hopefully more good, but even some bad. Like, it's in your brain, you have these memories, you have these stories that have been created on you, and you have this emotional connection to the place you just went, whether it's like for leisure or some other reason, like, again, that doesn't matter. Like, that's, you can connect in that way. Before I go, I don't have that. I have like shitty galleries of like, what does this look like? Is this like really where I want to go? Is this really the hotel I want to stay at? Like, it's just, it's not good, let alone like these drop downs that don't know me, forward, back, forward, like, oh God, can I just like figure that out? You can imagine technology that we have that could know you, could understand you, and actually can help fill out, with generative AI, actually fill out storytelling in between the dots that doesn't exist, because it's not cost productive to make a gallery or video for every individual person in this world. But imagine you could do that. Imagine you could start having that emotional connection to a place and actually understand what you're getting into. I know I travel a lot. There's times I've went places, I'm like, fuck, this is not what I thought. And it sucks because you're there. You spent the money, you spent your time, you're there. Doesn't that suck? The internet can help with that. Oh, there, but we got a little animation I forgot about. See, I was supposed to hit that because this is the Keynote problem. For anybody that knows Keynote, I just fucked up this. I hit the next button too many times. See, the internet sucks. Okay, next one, build for relationships. I think this is an important thing. If you're going to talk about emotional technology, relationships are incredibly important. I don't know if anybody has actually like asked this question of themselves, but the difference between connections and relationships. Online, we do a lot of connecting. Like, we follow people, connect with them. You know, I have like this many followers and connections. Like, it's all a transactional component. But I actually think there's a big difference because connections are brief. Well, we'll report some of these animations. But relationships are ongoing. So if you think about a relationship, a connection to a brand, it could be transactional. A relationship to a brand could be along forever. Same thing with people. We talked a lot about networking earlier today. You know, do you just want to make a connection, or do you want to make a relationship? If you make a relationship, it's long lasting, it's meaningful. And I think when you design experiences, if you think about real relationships, you can get different outcomes. I think luxury, I like to always do this sort of analog counterpart, but luxury shopping is like incredible on like its relationship building. But then you go online and it's like a shopping cart. It's literally called like a shopping cart. It's like I have groceries in a shopping cart. Like, I'm gonna put like my $15,000 watch or bag in a shopping cart. Like, that's how transactional the internet is. But what happens if you can create a relationship? Because if you go into Cartier or wherever, it's actually a lot different when you check out. Like, they actually know the people. They start to know if you shop there with someone regularly. Like, digital experiences can maybe have a different type of relationship that simulates that feeling that doesn't have to feel like a transactional moment. So, I don't know where I'm doing on time, but I'm at the end of this. I mean, these are the three areas. I think the point is, where do you want to live here? Do do you agree with this? And if you don't agree with this, I think technology is at a critical point right now, similar to when I was in school in the late 90s. It's crazy to say that, late 90s. And by the way, as an aside, everybody dresses the way that we dressed in the 90s, so I'd like to say we invented that. We invented that look. I just like to take credit for that. I was so like lining into my jeans because I had big jeans back in the day. But the important thing here is like I can tell you in the 23 years of learning code and theory, I have not felt the feeling that things are going to change like I have felt it like in the last year or two. Like I really feel it. So which makes me think if I was sitting here, it feels very similar to the way I was sitting in the late 90s where it's like, okay, change is happening. Probably the whole job workforce is going to change. And to me, this could be the most exciting opportunity in a generation to do something pretty amazing and kind of push boundaries and be actually creative. I like to define creativity not as the skill set, but how you think. That's like an important distinction that I think is important to me and that gets confused pretty often. Think about that skill set versus how you think. Because skill sets will be commoditized through tools. You know, we'll all be able to like design stuff and write stuff. I was not a good writer. I'm a pretty good writer now with ChatGPT. We talked about that earlier. So like if skill set can be taken, then it's your mind and creativity that is like pretty unique. And I'd be jealous if I was like a med student or some other student in this, on this campus right now. I'd be jealous to creative people because I'm pretty sure that creativity is the unlock of humanity, and that is like the uniqueness that can't just be replicated. Again, skill sets can't be, but true creativity can't. And I think that we're at a place where in 5, 10, 20 years from now, we won't be doing things the way we're doing them today. I'm actually pretty confident in this. I think technology is inevitable. Technology wins, definitely undefeated to its like analog counterpart. And I don't think it's mature enough to be the end goal of the state and just like slightly designing the better box or slightly designing the next drop-down flow or information architecture is where the world will go. I think there's like new ways to think, new ways to design, and new ways to apply creative thinking to business and humanity. And if I was sitting in these chairs right now, I'd be pretty pumped because now is a period of time of your life where you can actually think about it. You don't have to be bogged down with the weight of responsibility the same way that you actually have the uniqueness and freedom to do that. So as you enter into a professional workforce, whether you work for a company, whether you start a company, that actually you could like push boundaries and have superpower that most people really don't have. Most people talked about this earlier, lose creativity as they get older. And as long as you can maintain that and really think about it, it's a pretty interesting place to be right now if you could apply it properly. So that's all I got. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. Questions, folks? Bring them.
Yes, I'm glad you asked the question first.
First of all, when you talk about coming up with companies with AI, like the individuals that aren't like directly involved in that.
What does that mean, not directly involved?
Well, I mean, like I don't know, like half of the comes out all different companies stuff, business.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know, I'm just wondering about the practical examples of what will
Yeah, I think I understand your question. I think AI, as part of the suite of emerging technologies, I want to be clear, I think AI is like one easy example about that emotional technology. But there's other things, but I think that we will change humanity, like the way like technology, like the phone changed humanity, how we interact with each other as people and humans, and you know, assuming you're going to be a professional one day and you're going to work at a company, I bet you at that point, still AI will be early enough, even if you're, I don't know if you're a freshman or a senior, but I bet you, or you're a grad student or whatever, I bet you it'll still be early enough that people will be sitting in conference rooms or sitting in boardrooms going, what do we do? And I assume as a person that wants to thrive in those environments, regardless of your role within that company, whether you're like a traditional designer, a UX designer, or a marketer, or a technologist, or something all in between, or even whatever, even if you're like an accountant, it will affect you. And you can be part of that change for businesses and your career, and that's, I think, exciting. I mean, that's what a job is typically, help grow a company. That's why most people get hired. So if you're going to participate in helping the company grow, if you don't want to do that, I'll take it out of category because it feels a little capitalistic and people don't like me going there. You work for a nonprofit, you want to save people's lives and like build wells in, water wells in Africa. A friend that has charity water, I don't know if it's a very innovative charity. You know what they do? They think about technology. They think about how they can raise more money. Can they build more wells? Can they be more efficient building the wells? Can they communicate with each other in places that don't have access to the internet in the same way? Like it affects whether you want to be for good, for profit, for whatever. If you want to be a painter, probably doesn't affect you. You want to be a physical painter, maybe it will. I don't know. But I assume we want to mostly here be professionals. So I think it'll affect everybody in this room. And most creative people right now are incredibly scared of technology. It's like a scary thing, especially like designers and writers, and like it's just scary. Like we never realized that technology would like come for our jobs. But part of it is like it's going to change, and you want to be part of that change and sort of on the front foot, or do you want to sort of like wait to see what your role in the world is for that change? It's like, that's the question. I hope that wasn't scary. It was meant to be motivating, but everybody looked a little concerned after I said that.
Any good books that you've read that you would recommend to the people in this room, or just like articles in general?
I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a good reader. I don't love reading.
Gotcha.
I know that's like a controversial thing to say in a university. Like, I don't know, it's like, this stuff is like so new. It's like when I went to school, it's so new, like what could anybody possibly have wrote right now? But they may have some like process around like computing power that's like efficient and like, but like you live in the same world I live, we do the same things. Like you could look at, I would say just be curious, like what sucks that find your passion around what sucks and go there. Like figure it out. I don't know, I don't know if there's a book, maybe you guys know if there's a book, I don't know. Doesn't mean, I'm sure there's interesting books out there. I don't know, the things I'm reading online, I've been starting to publish stuff to Forbes because specifically even though I hate reading, I hate writing more. Luckily I have ChatGPT to help me with the writing. But I was very frustrated that I feel like no one is writing about like things beyond the transactional elements of what AI can do. So I'm trying to push narratives there, but I don't think a lot of it exists, to be honest. And part of it because it's like, who the hell knows? I don't know. I think there's a lot of fake experts out there in the world, including myself. And I just think we're just at that awesome point that no one knows. And professors probably don't know, I don't know. And like, they know how to teach how to learn. That's half the battle. Be creative. Learn to learn to be creative, and be creative and learn. And then you'd probably be pretty well off.
In terms of AI, like, where's your stance on people taking it like to a very like aggressive, like gross level? Like
Anti.
Yes. Like Elon Musk is like AI afterlife type reference.
I mean, here's like, every technology has something negative that comes from it, like, like humans aren't like perfect. We're imperfect and we're not like all good. And that's gonna happen. There's gonna be some bad stuff that happens from it. Like I say, social media, I think right now has done more harm than good. And it's like just a step back view. I mean, it's done a lot of good. It's like, like the Arab Spring, and it's like democratized like certain areas of the world can have access to voices. Like there are good things there. Like would we want that with bad or the mental health issues and all these other things? Like I don't know. Like, but you know what? Unfortunately, it doesn't matter if I'm anti it or pro it, because technology is undefeated and it will win everything. The only counter to the technology that's undefeated is humanity is also undefeated and resilient. So I'd like to believe that it can find space between humanity and technology where they can both continue to win and our lives can be enriched. I don't actually think that right now technology is enriched up to the point that the internet sucks. Like I honestly don't know that like anybody would say, yeah, I'm happier with technology in my life now than when I was in the 80s. Like I don't know if you can go to someone that like, you go, oh yeah, life is so much better now. Health and access to certain things are definitely better, and like I said, there's certain parts of the world that may have like had access to like free speech that didn't, and stuff like that. There's like the normal, take those extremes out of it, like the normal person. I don't know if like it's enriched our lives better now, but it is inevitable and it happens. Like I gave the example of like people can talk all they want, but like they just want what makes their life easier. Easier is not always better, but it's easier. It's like, oh, Uber sucks, let's all delete the Uber app and we all put it back on. And it's like, Facebook's horrible, they like don't trust it, but we're all sitting like on Meta and some Instagram and like with this, like it doesn't matter. So like our only job could be the good guys, the good people, and design things that are better, that are good, than faster than people that do bad. That are better, that are bad. Like that's the reality of it. And I just believe in humanity that over time, if we're in the short part of the internet, over time it will be better and we enrich our lives. But I'm an optimist, so it's very easy to go negative on AI. Like it's like we can spend like 7 hours talking about like how it's gonna like, take over the sentient robots. I thought we were gonna go like Elon with sentient robots and like we have to send like Arnold Schwarzenegger back to like this moment right now. Like this is the moment he comes back and kills the robots that were started to create now. Isn't that crazy to think about that? Like this would be the moment you'd send Arnold Schwarzenegger back. But luckily we have Arnold Schwarzenegger, so she should be okay.
So this is kind of a difficult question to like pose, I guess, like words. But like I agree with your principles of like how to design a better internet. Like you need more friction, you need more to catch your eye, you need more experience. But I don't think that AI presents any, like AI as we know it now, like neural networks, presents an advantage over just an emotionally intelligent designer. Why would, like, obviously you can make an emotional connection with AI. There are people right now who have insane delusions about having an AI girlfriend, and they live in that world, in that fantasy. They're emotionally connected to it. But that's the thing about AI is that it's unpredictable. It's a statistical model. That's why it can't be like analogized to a tool nicely. You control what a tool does. You don't control what AI does. You don't control its output nicely. Why can't you just have a designer whose output is controlled by themselves instead of this thing that you don't control?
There's a lot to that question. First of all, I think AI is evolving and there's new technologies. Like I am an investor in this one AI company that has built from scratch, not based on like one of the current LLMs, that it doesn't match words by just like binary understanding of what it is, but actually is built on science of psychology. So if you believe in the science of psychology, which is an imperfect science, imagine that applied to code and how it can connect in a different way. So I'm just gonna hold on that example for a second. So I had a friend, and he wouldn't mind me sharing this, but he's actually, he wrote on that wall just outside this wall, this door right here. It's kind of a tragic story. He lost his son. His son was young. His son was like 19 years old, like incredibly tragic. And he was incredibly upset about, as one would be, to know how to like even process that. And he went to a grief specialist, and it's helpful. You speak to someone, and then just because he didn't know what to do, he started going to ChatGPT and other LLMs and started to like ask questions to like go through his grief. And surprisingly, the actual AI was in some ways not fully helpful, but in some ways more helpful than the grief therapist. I thought a lot about it, and I'm like, why? How could that be? And we've spoken a lot about it, and it's quite interesting. It wasn't like perfect. And the only thing I could liken it to is like, I don't know if anybody has like partners in this room, but like, your partner says something to you, you don't hear it, and someone else, a stranger, says it to you, and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah. And even though your partner has like said it all along. And I think there's sometimes you can hear or see things in ways when maybe actually you abstract out humanity, even though it's maybe more human to it, and able to connect to it. Now, I only bring that up, it's a tragic example, but if you can start helping people through an extreme situation like that, and it's in its rudimentary, I'm like, well, we're talking about rudimentary form right now. It's hard for me not to imagine that if we were more intentional and we designed things with these systems and this technology as it evolves, and yes, right now it's not perfect, right? But and most of the systems that we use across the internet, as I say, sucks, and it's not thinking about the emotional state of things. But imagine you could design to someone's emotional state. Again, there's some scary things, we can go negative on it, but there's also some incredibly powerful, positive things. I don't know the answer. These three things are just areas that I've been pondering when I've been approaching some of my things that I've been designing and challenges. I don't know if it's there's probably 4, 5, 6 that could exist, but I just think I'm trying to be more intentional in some of the areas that I'm designing now, thinking about what the technology could be, and then how we apply that technology and design things using it in a way that looks different, that isn't just hey, let me design the same thing a million times over, slightly better, because I just don't think that does anything, but actually fundamentally shift how someone could use it. I truly believe, and by the way, as mentioned, I started a business called On Discourse because I believe in disagreement, so I appreciate the question and the challenge. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, and 5 years from now, we could be exactly where we are today. But my instinct says that if my friend could get a little relief through technology that probably 5 years ago, before ChatGPT existed, couldn't have done that, but now he could, and we're only in the beginning, it means to me that there's a lot more we can do. We can go a lot further on this.
And a little more on the practical side, when you hire designers in your company, what do you look on them? I know you mentioned it being creative, being innovative, regarding AI. So I'm looking forward to more a specific requirements or tips, how many should I just bring my physical work, bring it to you, or should I have a website? Should I have, I don't know, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, we talked about this a little earlier. I'm going to go with the relationships and connections first. I've learned to put that first about 4 hours ago, because I think no matter how good your portfolio is, if you don't have the place for it to be seen, then it doesn't matter. It's like the tree falling in the woods sort of thing. So I would definitely be focused on relationships first, and how to create relationships and how to create these meaningful moments with people, so you can actually start the dialogues. At the end of the day, it's like the start. Like I told you, when I graduated, no one would hire me. I couldn't not get a job. It's only because I had a relationship with someone that I was able to find a place to see that maybe I had some potential. So I'd start there. Then it's look, you need good ideas that can be demonstrated into your portfolio that you're hopefully creating over these couple of years here. Make sure that there are things that you think are this is I can really show the way I think and how it can be applied. And then You gotta learn how to storytell it, like how to both storytell it in places like digital forms when you're not gonna be there, like how to write about it, or how can you design things that you're designing, like, you know, your portfolio website, for example, like how does that communicate a story that makes you like want to tell all the great stuff about yourself and what you've done, and then you gotta figure out how to talk to people and articulate that clearly, not just like, hey, look, the typography is good. It's like what are you solving? What questions did you ask? Like, how do you express that in a way that feels meaningful? How do you like hear what people's needs are, what their business needs are, and how can you then attach what you can solve and apply and help them solve that? Like, it's really that. It's like connections, how you communicate, and back it up with being creative. Like, I wish it was like, hey, do this other 7 tactical things. It's actually like the softer, hard skills around being creative. Like, so if you can't figure out how to be creative, and like, it's the point. Like, you gotta be good at what you do. But really, you have to be good at talking about what you do, because like the business world doesn't care. Like, the job doesn't exist for the job. Does that make sense? Like, the job exists to grow the company, to be there for the company. Like, I noticed, like, as my company scaled and I've like had less like connection with the people that work for me, you know, it's like for 2,000 people, I don't know most of them anymore, which is a strange concept. I've noticed that like they forget the company doesn't exist for them. It's like, it sounds silly to say out loud because it's almost obvious, but people forget that. Like, the job existed for the company. So like, you know, as I said this earlier, but it's like, how can you give the company value that exceeds what they're giving you? You figure that out, you can communicate that, you get in front of people and be able to like tell that story, and good things will happen for the most part over the long period of time. I just joke that, not joke, but sometimes short term, you know, you give exceed value and some takes advantage of you. But I think long term, if you exceed the value and you can demonstrate that and articulate that, good things happen, whether it's like the entry job, get in the door. I mean, like when I started coding theory, I didn't have clients. I didn't like really know anybody. There's like things like photographer websites and band websites and like a club and things like that. It just like worked. And like I was like saying like, I don't even know how much money I got paid an hour. It could have been like 25 cents, 17 cents. I don't even know. Like someone would be like, I only have like $500. I mean, granted, $500 23 years ago was a lot more than it was today, but like, I had no money, but I took something for $500. It took me probably like 3 months. Me and like, I started the company with someone else. Me and my business partner are like 3 months to do, 2 months for this project, 3 months for that job. We have this, like, like literally like barely eating, and we worked our asses off. And made it like the coolest, whatever it was. If it was like a photography site, it'd be like, this photographer is going to get the best website that's ever existed in the world. Like, we used to think like that. We're like, this is going to be fucking crazy. Like, it's better than the photographer. Like, it wasn't even, the photographer wasn't even good. We're like, their website was amazing. And like, we would do like crazy shit. Like, I remember like, yeah, this like, and like little stuff too. Like, we'd be like, wouldn't it be cool if like when we rolled over like the navigation, we'd suddenly change the color, so it'd be like on something stupid too. You'd like roll over and like it just create a cool effect. Like every little detail, we would just be like, and that's where like, I mean, it's like we, like all these things that we design now, like the endless scroll I was saying earlier, didn't exist. Like responsive design, do we teach responsive design in this stuff? Like, I think I did the first responsive website ever. We didn't call that responsive. We just said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we designed something and changed the shape based on the size of the browser and the phone, like, and everything could respond to the context. And we did it, we did for like Atlantic Records. And like, this is before responsive existed. Like, we're just like, that seems like a smart idea to do. Like, it's just like thinking like that. You know, like everything you do, like don't accept it, be creative, apply it, learn how to sell it. You gotta say everything's selling. Like, I should also say, like, because I said this earlier, as creative people and designers, you hear no 1,000,000 times more than yes. So you better get used to that. Like, most of your, like when you're in school, you do an assignment and like, it's your assignment, and you got to do it. In business, you start something, it's like, no, we don't like that, you just like throw it out. Do you know how many ideas get like thrown out and how many no's? Like, even actually right before I came in here, I got called, it was like, oh, we lost this big pitch, huge pitch. With Bayer, you know, the medicine, B-A-Y-E-R, it's like, fuck, it still happens all the time. No's, no's, no, 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 no. Like, just get used to that. So when you graduate from school and you're looking for a job, you're gonna get no one answering you. That's going to happen 1,000,000 times. And the question is, do you reply, do you email them again, or do you not? Oh, I tried that, you know, it's like I tried, I emailed them. I sent it through the form. It's like, okay, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. Eventually, someone listens and hears you. And eventually you get a yes and a million no's. You know, I was like a shy kid when I don't know if this is appropriate to say on stage anymore. But I was a shy kid when I was even in school. I always joke that like I was a class clown to like get myself out of like the shyness. That was like my technique. But it was like really hard for me to like get girls because like, you know, when you're shy, like, you know, that's just hard. And you're like, oh, I just wish they would come to my door, knocking on my door. Now maybe with like apps that works a little more, I don't know, I'm married for too many years now. But like at the time, it's like I had a friend that's like, gotta just like go up to like 100 girls. And you know, yeah, it's humiliating because like maybe 99 says no, but you get one that says yes and you know, you go on a date or whatever. Like you get like humility where you go, oh, the girl says no, so now I'm never gonna ask a girl out again. Like same thing, I think it's a weird analogy, but like I'm just trying to get you to the emotional state of what it feels like to be rejected, because that's like humiliating. But who cares? Like all those girls that probably said no to me probably don't even remember me. And that sounds like it's like not a good thing, but you know what? I'm happily married. So it worked out for me. And doesn't that all that matters is the ones that say yes in your life? So there's a long way to answer what you should do for your portfolio and stuff.
Just me?
We got Northport again?
Yeah, Northport.
Northport.
Piggybacking off the portfolio question, I'm sorry, teacher, I don't think you're gonna like Dan's answer. If you were in art, like, if you were in our shoes as a graphic designer here, everybody's taken pretty similar classes, if not the same classes to graduate. Would you use any of this stuff that teachers might be like, oh, you can use this in your portfolio once you graduate?
Well, yeah, but use those, first of all, find the things in your portfolio that you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, what else, I mean, yeah, maybe you have an internship and you can use that stuff too, but like, you have the luxury to not be turned down by someone that doesn't know what they're talking about. Like that also happens. The no's happen to people that you may actually be more creative or smarter than in your life. But right now, you can do anything that you think you truly believe in, like anything. So yeah, you should be making those things that you truly believe in. Use the constructs of these projects. The projects exist as a framework to maybe get you to think and put things in a place that someone else may care about. Like, so yeah, I would 100%. I mean, unless you have like, again, side jobs that are like better than the ideas that you're having. It'd be hard for me to imagine if I interned. Actually, I was an intern while I was in school for a brief period of time, but the work I did as an intern sucked compared to the work that I was doing just randomly in the school. Actually, and by the way, I was doing a lot of other stuff. Like I used, because I was like into like the program, the code and the theory of things. So like I was like programming hard and doing like learning, because like it was so like absent at that time. Like again, the way like certain technology is now, like I had all my spare time to do, like I had a computer science major as a roommate. I'd be like, oh, I want to do this, and he'd like show me how to do it. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I would like make things that I was like passionate about. Sometimes I would then find ways to apply it to schoolwork because I didn't feel like doing my schoolwork. I was not a good student, I should say. Sorry, I said this earlier. I was like a solid B-ish student, which I think is above average, so maybe it's not a bad student, but like I wasn't like, how do I get A's all the time and focus everything on like just like making my teacher happy. I was really interested in learning, and I was interested in like the things I could take from it and then how I could apply it to things I was passionate about. It's like it's not the activity, it's what you're learning. And then you can turn the activity into something you want. Like that's so you gotta do stupid shit. And that's fine too. You don't include that, include the stuff. You only need like 3 or 4 really strong things to say, look, I'm fucking great. Like 3 or 4 things, really strong, probably 3, I would say just 3. 4 feels a lot. 3 things that you're like, this is amazing. You can tell the story, you really believe in it, it's differentiated to show you who you are as a like creative person, and then find the people that get listened to. Did we have a missing hand?
What would be like your number one piece of advice for aspiring user interface or user experience designers?
My advice would be listen to this and think about how it could apply to like UX or UI. To be honest, like I think, like I said, with like responsive design or the first like TV everywhere experience we did for like Comcast, there was Netflix, like all those things happen in days because we're like, oh, this kind of sucks. Like, yeah, you could just design something slightly nicer, but like, what I find things that just like, that, again, you feel passionate about that suck, and like, why does it suck? Is like, is there a totally different? It's not always, by the way. I shouldn't say that like everything needs to be reinvented because it could come off that way. Like, yeah, I'm generally saying the internet sucks, so I'm saying that as a point to just like really make me think. But like, I'm not saying reinvent the wheel on the old like wheel expression. Clearly, a wheel works. Well, maybe we will have flying cars and the wheel is obsolete. But I'm just saying that like if I was a UX UI like freak, I would like just be like, why does it work like that? I don't know. Like, does scrolling suck? Does up and down scrolling suck? Is there a different way? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's a bad example, but you see what I'm saying. So when we came up with tapping at one point, like, actually I had a big argument with well, you guys may know Josh Polsky is like a big tech blogger. A huge argument about like scrolling versus tapping. I think I won that. Tapping seems to be the preference of choice now, right? Like tap. Isn't that funny? It's something that small. You know how like transformative that is to the business world, like advertising and design, tap versus scroll. That's it. When I think about UX UI, I think about those little moments. It's actually not the big thing, it's the little thing that is like so transformative. How are we doing? Do you keep going? I'll keep going, but you do that. I don't
Are
mind.
there more questions or?
As soon as I gave them the out, they're like, no one fucking asks questions.
I mean, do you have another last call, questions? All right, thanks so much, everyone. For our last lecture. Take care, everyone.